Innovation series to hear how two state agencies have moved to Salesforce with very, very different approaches. My name is Michelle Chung, and I'm the director of TRUE, a public-private partnership with a mission to increase tech-enabled jobs here in Hawaii. We all face similar business problems. How do I take my first step in digital transformation? How do I engage customers during the pandemic? How can I leverage technology in a better way? TRUE serves to support organizations in Hawaii by sharing how innovative companies have solved their business problems, which are typically common across many industries, with the hopes that it'll help you accelerate the adoption of technology and innovation. If you listen to the speakers and think, I have the same problem they did, or I want their solution, then we want to support you in making it happen, whether it's with a follow-up discussion, technical details, or a demo. So please do reach out. TRUE is an initiative of the Hawaii Executive Collaborative. If you're interested to learn how you or your organization can be a part of TRUE, or to see other use cases or solutions, please visit us at hec.org/true or connect with me. I'd like to thank the other organizations who help bring you these events. The first is HEDC, Hawaii Technology Development Corp. They're a state agency attached to DBED. Their mandate is to grow the tech economy and workforce here in Hawaii, which is really closely aligned with TRUE's mission. The second is the Entrepreneur Sandbox, which is a co-working facility in Kaka'ako, owned by HEDC and managed by Box Jelly. It's Hawaii's front door to innovation, where we stand up technology, showcase it, and provide an open space for collaboration. Today, we have a fireside chat with an amazing group of leaders, followed by a Q&A session. Before we begin, let me just share a couple of housekeeping rules. Please send in your questions during the session through the Q&A function. We'll take the questions at the end of the fireside chat. The session is being recorded, and there'll be a survey at the end of the session so you can provide your feedback. It'll also be a way to indicate that you want to continue this conversation. I'd like to start a quick poll just to see how many people are on CRM. So I'd appreciate if you could participate in that. But while you do that, I wanted to share some quick stats. This is a couple of years old, but IBM research showed that these were the leading benefits from adopting a CRM solution. And while IT investment continues to grow, the focus has been on customer-facing products, one of which is CRM. And I will end the poll now and share some of the results that we see. So it's good to see that over half of us are on CRM, and less than half of us are on CRM, and we'll learn how our two state agencies have adopted it and what the benefits are there. So without further ado, I'd like to dive into the program by introducing Dina Tierney. Dina is the founder and CEO of Pacific Point, a Salesforce consulting partner headquartered here in Hawaii with locations in San Francisco, Denver, Sydney, and Singapore. Dina's strong technical background in CRMs, customer relationship management tools, software development, and consulting have given Pacific Point the foundation it needs to serve clients from large enterprises, small and medium businesses, non-for-profit organizations, and public sector government entities. Dina sits on the TRUE Board of Advisors and also gives back by committing to the Pledge 1%, a movement that focuses her company's give back efforts on inspiring youth to pursue careers in technology. Welcome, Dina. Thank you for being here.
Thank you. Thanks for inviting me, Michelle. If you want, I guess you could take the screen down. Well, we're going to have Dean and Paula show up in a few minutes. I'd love to see their faces a little bit bigger than the small screen.
Of course.
But nevertheless, I saw the registration list in advance. Michelle gave me a little bit of a preview. I saw some fantastic public sector organizations as well as those in the private sector, a pretty good cross section. And I think that regardless of your background and your industry, I think today is going to be super informative as well as fun. And by the way, we have liaison Paula and Dean. You can turn your videos on. We're waiting to see your face. I love seeing you guys with the liaison, and thanks to my team for arranging this. I think we all missed the days when we could hang out at the sandbox and see each other in person and have those in-person events. So we thought this might be a little bit of a way to feel like we're a little closer together with our speakers and their lays. Although Dean Hazama was quick to point out that it's not quite the same without the snacks and the drinks and of course the in-person networking. So if you happen to have some snacks nearby, feel free to go for it. I don't know about the drinks. I'll leave that to you and your boss to sort out. But nevertheless, it's great to see some color on the screen. With that, welcome to A Tale of Two Government Agencies on Salesforce. My name's Dina Tierney. I'm the founder and CEO of Pacific Point, a Salesforce consulting firm that's headquartered here in Hawaii and helping businesses and organizations optimize their Salesforce investment. Before we begin, I have a question for all of you to think about. What expectations do you have when you engage with government? I can tell you that more and more citizens are expecting consumer-like experiences. And what that means is simplicity and speed. We want that frictionless experience. We want more online services 24/7 when we want it. And we want transparency. So think about this scenario. You have a need, maybe your sneakers are getting old and you want to go buy some new sneakers. So what you want is simplicity and speed in that buying process. You want the information available about the sneakers. You want to be able to ask questions about those sneakers, and you want to buy them when you're ready to. And you also want to know the status of your order. You want transparency into that process. Is it delayed? Is it delivered? Has it been shipped, right? So now imagine a government agency like the two guests that we have here today that have a mission to protect and or serve the citizens or their constituents. And in many cases, some cases through regulation. So imagine a government agency not only having to protect and serve, but also to have to do so in a way that delivers on a citizen expectation for a consumer-like experience. That's not easy, and that's how Salesforce. A lot of people ask me, how do public sector companies or organizations use Salesforce? And that's it. Salesforce, being the world's #1 customer relationship management system, is not only helping businesses providing that platform of innovation to innovate their customer experiences, but governments are leveraging Salesforce to do the same for their constituents and for their stakeholders. So let's jump into today's discussion because we've got some amazing guests that I can't wait for you to meet. I've known Dean Hazama and Paula Isla for a very long time. I've seen both of these two leaders in action on their projects, and I can safely say that these two leaders, while they have very different styles in terms of how they lead, they also have very different problems that they're trying to solve for their respective departments. Both of them, as a matter of consistency, they're both using Salesforce as the platform for continuous innovation in their department, and they are both very effective change agents in their departments. So I can't wait for you to hear their stories. So Paula and Dean, thank you for joining us today, taking time. And before we get into all the details, and we have a lot of questions, I have a lot of questions to ask you, I'm sure our audience will too. Can you give us your role, your title, as well as the mission, just educate us on the mission of your department. And Paula, ladies first, I have to say. Dean, I'm sure would welcome this ladies first agenda. So go ahead, Paula.
Thank you, Dina. Aloha mai kako. I am with the Department of Hawaiian Home Lands. My position currently is acting administrator within the chairman's office, and I oversee a couple different teams. One is the contact center, which is directly related to the topic of discussion today. And then I also manage what's called an awards team, where we offer lots and lands out to our beneficiaries. Our mission is very specific. We service and serve Hawaiians, 50% of Hawaiian blood and 18 years of age. So we have a very, very specific audience that we serve. And with that comes a lot of opportunities, and I always feel blessed to do the work that I do, having being part Hawaiian and having been raised on the homestead lands. So it's very core to my existence or my DNA, if you will. So that's kind of an underlying motivation for me to do the work that I do. Thank you. I'm so happy to be here and honored that you asked me to join you folks.
Yeah, thank you. All right, Dean.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm the Business Management Officer for the department. Commerce and Consumer Affairs regulates and licenses businesses and individuals in the state. So these include most professions, security companies, financial institutions, and insurers. We also have the Office of State Consumer Protection, regulated industry investigators, and the consumer advocate for public utilities in the state. So we are very business centric and business economic centric agency. So Salesforce CRM kind of fits that that spot for us.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you. I'm going to ask both of you this question as well for our audience. I think you were starting to go there, Dean. Maybe we'll start with you. Is what was the pain point, or what was the business problem that the DCCA was trying to solve that initiated this need to look at something like Salesforce?
Yeah, I think the main thing that we were getting feedback from our customers and our businesses that we do business with was that they wanted the same environment and the capabilities to interact with us the same way that they interact amongst themselves out in the business and the economy. So that was one of the main things that we're trying to solve is get our ability to do that with them. We had a bunch of legacy, a lot of them non-supported applications on different platforms that were very, very old. And then we had also some manual processes that we needed to automate as well. But really the main impetus was, what our customers were asking us to do.
Got it. Well, so then how did you decide that Salesforce was right? Kind of give me a little bit of a preview into that.
Well, we did research other platforms as well. So we did our due diligence, we did our market research into other things. But in a business environment in the economy, then Salesforce has a little bit of a better fit for us in the CRM world. We did also wait and to make sure that ETS was okay with us using Salesforce as a platform before we actually launched our major efforts in development in that. So that's how we kind of did stuff.
Gotcha. Okay, great. What, Paula, from your end, you had an interesting business problem to solve. Can you tell us about how that started with you guys?
Sure. It came at us from two different paths. So one was from our chairman at the time, who was getting feedback from our beneficiaries. That's our customer group. We call them beneficiaries. And then also beneficiaries directly were giving us feedback about that we were unresponsive. And so there was all this anecdotal information coming at us from two different pathways, from the staff level and then also from the chairman's office. So the chairman really took it to heart and wanted to make this a focal point in the last part of her administration. This started in the last administration. And I happen to have experience in this area. So long story short, she asked me to take on the project and I was thrilled to do it. I enjoyed this type of work. So that's really the impetus of how this problem came about. It's really from our customers.
Yep. So with that, it was you said responsiveness. So people contacting the department, checking status, trying to get responses, maybe not hearing back, or what was the kind of story
right
around that?
So, our beneficiaries are very honest, and they would just say, you don't answer your phones. That's really what the discussion was. We call you folks all the time. Sometimes I have to call many numbers. I just go through the directory and I keep calling until somebody picks up the phone. So that was the first problem. And the second problem was, and when I do get someone, they can't answer my questions. So they were going around, you know, the agency really to just try and find help. And that's what was causing their frustration that we needed to resolve for them. So feedback would come to us in person because we do a lot of face-to-face meetings statewide and to get our attention. And then also once they got us on the phone or through email, they would just share their high level of frustration with us.
Gotcha. Okay. Now I know you had said that you did some due diligence. Dean mentioned some of his. Tell us about your due diligence process, and what brought you eventually to Salesforce.
So our due diligence started because I had some experience in this area. I wanted to start with research. So really the first order of business in my project plan was to hire someone that I could work side by side, because I wear multiple hats. So I needed someone to just kind of be at my side to help drive this initiative. So the first order of business was to hire a customer service manager who eventually was going to oversee the contact center so that they could live this whole journey with me. And by the time we got to opening up the contact center, she would have a feel for Salesforce. Then the second order of business was to hire a research firm. And in the research firm, their responsibility was to do focus groups, both internal and external. Internal with our staff, we wanted to get feedback from our internal customers, and then externally from all of our beneficiaries. So we hosted focus groups statewide on every island with the exception of Lanai. And then we also did customer surveys. So we mailed out surveys to everyone on our list. And then we also did employee surveys. And we wanted to test anecdotally the feedback that we were getting from our beneficiaries. So that was an interesting exercise. And then we presented the findings to the commission, which serves as our board of directors, if you will, so that we could proceed to then look for the platforms. In our due diligence, on a separate path, we also went to conferences. I wanted to meet these vendors face to face to just kind of scale who was a right fit for us. Were they too big for us, or us too small for them? So we went to 2 different conferences. The first one was really just, let's just, see what's out there. And these were companies from all over the world. And then we went back the second time to really hone in on just narrowing the companies that we thought were the right fit for us. We have a very small contact center. So that kind of completed that part of the due diligence. And I'm happy that we did that, because when we did eventually work with our IT contract with our agency and then meeting with ETS, we actually thought Salesforce was going to be too huge for us when we met them at the conference. And after we met with ETS, lo and behold, we found out that they were part of the vendor list. So that really just made it so much easier for us. We just said, hallelujah, we'll just go with that, because, seeing as the state is the bigger customer for Salesforce, we basically just latched onto that opportunity, and it was like a blessing for us. So.
Okay, cool. I like that. Maybe Michelle, if you can do me a favor and show that sample project plan. And Paul, I don't know if you want to highlight anything in here, but I liked this example to give people an idea of the pathway that you guys took. It was well thought out. Any points that you want to make on this slide as we've got this one up?
Yeah, so just, we color coded it, and it's really just to focus us from by fiscal year to see what we could accomplish, set out and accomplish by fiscal year. So what I just described with the customer surveys and all of that is the due diligence. And then the next year we're looking at really how do we procure this and how do we get it through the procurement system, and budget approvals, and then just kind of continuing on in that green space, looking at, okay, once we get the approvals, then other partners that we had to work with, such as HR, other types of vendors that we were bringing in. The yellow area is really the integration. That's really when we were going live. Okay, now we're going to turn this on and kind of flesh out, things that work, things that weren't working. And then the red area is really, that's going to be another phase that's still in the works, but where that's really going to be led by our IT group. But that's kind of the timeline that we follow, just to keep us on track. Those are the milestones.
Great, awesome. Thanks, Michelle, and thanks, Paula, for that explanation. And just to be clear for the audience, Department of Hawaiian Home Lands has a cloud-based call center, contact center now live, and you guys have continued to roll out different capabilities that the call center agents can handle and different service that they can support through the call center now. Did you want to elaborate on any of that active, what it's being used for right here, right now, Paula?
Sure. The other piece I failed to mention in our research is we also sourced out what's called a telephony platform, which really is your phone partner. It's just your phone system that ties into Salesforce. So the phone system that we landed on is called TalkDesk. And that actually we introduced that to ETS. And then they, at the time, was working with the payroll group. So that's also within that agency. So that expanded the opportunity there. But we have taken this small initiative. We were going to start and stop with the contact center. And we've migrated those opportunities into other teams that I manage, like I said, the awards team, who really serve as case managers. And that's been phenomenal because it's really, I find it to be an awesome collaborative tool where we can be in our office or mobile, we can do it by phone, where if somebody calls me, a customer, I can quickly look up their account in Salesforce, their case, and then see everybody else's notes and be really current on what's going on with that customer. So it's a 360 view of everyone who touches that customer. So that's the goal that we're trying to strive for right now. We're still working through that. But then we're also into other builds, meaning we're building other groups into the Salesforce system, if that answers your question.
Awesome, that's great. Yeah, I just wanted to make sure it was clear as you kind of explained that journey, but you guys are actively using it now, and you've got calls coming in, and it's fantastic.
Yeah.
So from Dean's perspective, I wanted to ask you, I get asked this question a lot of times, where do you start, right? How did you know? And you talked a little bit about how from your end, your customer base, being the business community, had certain expectations of the DCCA that you wanted to meet. But how did you decide where to start from the DCCA's perspective? Because you've really evolved. You've come a long way from the early days. Can you explain that first moment? And
well, you start at the beginning. You really, you have to do a business case analysis and then figure out, what your return on investment is going to be, how long that's going to be, and if it justifies doing the project, number one.
Yep.
And the second thing that we did was we identified all the benefits and the improvements that developing a system on Salesforce or our system would do. And we use that as your underlying principle during your development process. So, your partner, your system integrator partner, they're going to do the what and the how, okay? But I think as an organization internally, you come up with a list, and this list is your why. Why are you doing the project, right? What's the underlying principles of why we're doing this project? So, you keep that list. You have a basic tenant to start with. That list is going to grow through the project, which is fine. That's great. But you keep that list as your basic tenants as an overlying guiding principle for you as you start developing your system. And the next thing you do is, of course, you have to map your current workflows. So you have to identify what we're doing now, everything we're doing now, and in order to make improvements on that. So we went through a lot of lessons learned, and hopefully I'll be able to share some of that later on.
Yep.
In the presentation.
I will make time for that. Maybe Michelle, if you don't mind, maybe we could pop up the diagram of some of the work that's in, some of it's done, some of it's in progress, but Dean, I don't know if you wanted to speak to kind of an overview. I think what's interesting is how you started. If you take a look at this diagram and think back to, you know, the pieces that started and sort of how that evolution happened, did you want to kind of give any high points about the core functionality that you have inside of, you know, how you're using Salesforce today at the department?
Yeah, this chart shows us our payment collection system. So over a year's period, we collect over $30 million in fees and applications and all of that. So if you can look at the top of the Salesforce platform box, there are the different ways that we interact with our customers, either online, they come in person, over the phone, they mail stuff in. So those are how we interact with them. And then, you know, everything's done in Salesforce, and we have these integrations from external and internal, as well as what I call the App Store. So, you know, Salesforce has the App Store. So you can go and get an application and a plugin that does a lot of things for you, like document management, things like that. So we have a lot of plugins that will interface with our platform, but kind of basically shows you that, you know, with the use of Salesforce, it gives you the flexibility, for us anyway, to interact and do business with our customers in many, many different ways that, you know, we have to.
Yeah, perfect. Thanks for sharing that. Thanks, Michelle. Thanks for popping that up. I know we're going to transition into lessons learned, as you said, but if we take a step back, I mean, you guys, maybe how long, Dean, have you been on Salesforce now?
Well, our payment collection system is coming up on 3 years. So we've been using it for almost 3 years now. We have a securities exam and compliance application that's coming up on 2 years. So we've been on it at least 3 years. If you include development time, closer to 4, I think we're looking at. But we're kind of in the middle of this. So, you know, I have two of these applications running now. I have 2 other project applications that are going to come live in early 2021 next year. And we just started development in another area. So, you know, it's a whole combination of, we've done a bunch of projects. We're getting ready to finish and complete, you know, a couple more, and then we're still working on some. So,
are there any gains that like you've seen, just immediate gains, immediate benefits, whether they're metric based, a little bit anecdotal, not? I mean, just what is your view on how the department has gained or benefited so far?
Well, obviously, other than improving, you know, the processes that the system allows, we're now easily able to generate metrics, which we didn't have before. They weren't easily available. We're able to provide the public greater accountability and transparency. So we have visibility of all our transactions now. Customer service has improved. We have web portals that we're going to bring up to allow our customers to interact with us online. We're able to, and this is a hard thing, but we're able to bring over some of our legacy data from systems. So we're able to migrate some of that data into our new systems. We have a lot of internal and external integrations and the improvement that we're able to provide both customers outside of the department as well as other business sections within the department has been great. And for me anyway, you know, we constantly hear about so we can accept credit cards and automated payments now, automated forms of payment from our customers. So again, it goes back to, you know, the expectations, I think, of what our customers are in doing business and transacting with us.
Yeah, totally. What about Paula, from your side, along this journey so far? Are there any gains that come to mind and some wins or successes that you've observed as a leader in your department?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, what's top of mind for me as a win, if you will, is one number that we now utilize for all calls coming in. which goes through our contact center. And so the gains there from an efficiency is we're able to filter those calls and try to do a one conversation resolution, if you will, instead of, releasing that customer to never, never land and they just get lost. So we try to filter that through different scripts, different topics. We're able to categorize those topics, the metrics. So from an inbound, the one number contact center is enormous, I believe, in the agency's history. And then it also elevates the engagement level with our customers. I think I've mentioned the story before. The first day we opened, because our customers were so used to nobody answering the phone, the first day we launched, I think it was like the second or third call, one of my agents, Aloha Department, of Hawaiian Home Lands, may I help you? And there was just dead silence. And my agent was like, is anybody there? And this woman who we happen to know because we've met her at meetings, she's like, is this a real body or is this a recording? So that in and of itself started to change the relationship. And now it really, in my opinion, has enhanced the relationships that we have. So we have our list of customers that, always just want to call us. I have my list of customers that, they'll call me because they only want to talk to me. So that's how it's elevated the engagement, in that we have bonded at different levels. And, the metrics we're still looking at, of course, we have metrics that we never had in the past. And so as we work through that to see, what we want to achieve over time. But those are some of the gains that I have to say I'm proud of from our team's perspective, the agency.
That's amazing. So transitioning into lessons learned, maybe some big surprises as you've been on this journey. You've been on it has yours been about 2 years almost as well?
Mine, 3 years. We're going into our 4th year now.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
Lessons learned. I think it's really important to have strong leadership support, because you're gonna, we're talking about change management. And I know that Dean has faced similar issues from a change management perspective. And, traditionally people don't like change. So if you have a strong support from your administration, that really helps you to clear the paths that you're not able to clear on your own, and you really shouldn't have to do it on your own because it's at a higher level, if you will, to address. I think that lessons learned also is to really look at who you're hiring, because you go through a lot of work to get this launched, and then you want to make sure you have the right fit, if you will. And it may not necessarily be someone who is very skilled in customer service, but like, for example, one of the traits that was important to me was just genuine people skills, and so we were looking for that in someone's personality, true, genuine, not just, someone who does really well in an interview and then you put them on the phone and it just kind of falls apart. So those are some of the lessons learned, and I think we fared well in that area. And then really the biggest lesson learned is really to stay engaged with your internal staff as well, because that's where the naysayers come out. And you have to try and figure out how to get these people from point A to point Z and in what time frame. So that's probably the biggest lesson learned that we're still working through. We haven't solved that, problem entirely.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. That's the tough thing, is managing change, and both of you guys are great at it. So Dean, from your side, what are any big surprises, or maybe the most challenging thing that came your way, a big lesson through this journey that you'd like to share?
I could write a book, but so to echo Paula's thing, you're gonna realize how big a factor change management plays in the development of your system. So you're going to want to bring your change management plan and develop that upfront in your project because it's going to make a difference. So, we found here that, basically there's three categories. So you have your change champions. So those are the people that you're going to say, hey, I want to do this thing. They're on board from day one. They're your, let's do this kind of thing there. So as long as your project stays on track and you pretty much, the system does what you tell them or, is going to do, they'll be with you. And you have the second group of guys, I call them the wait and seers. Okay, so they're probably your biggest group. They're going to tell you, yeah, we heard this 5-10 years ago, nothing ever happened. So they're going to sit back, wait a little bit. But as the project moves along, they'll get on board because they'll realize that it's actually going to happen. And then you have your last group. I call them the tug of warriors. See, these are folks that you're going to have, no matter what you do, you're going to have to drag them across the finish line. Okay. But the strange thing about that is we found that, some of these guys that you drag across, when they actually start using your system, they actually are going to be some of your better users, right? In the sense that they're going to start recommending improvements and all of that. So kind of interesting dynamic. The other thing that I can tell you to avoid is, you know your business best. So the subject matter experts are all going to come from your area, right? What you want to avoid is having your SMEs end up with developing and automating your current workflows, and that's all you do, right? Because you want to focus and make sure that you do all the improvements, and that you just don't automate your current workflows so that you end up transferring, instead of a hard copy piece of paper in your hand, now you have it on the screen and you're doing the exact same things. So you want to kind of avoid that pitfall.
Yeah, absolutely. Cool.
Dina,
Oh, go ahead. Yeah.
I just want to add to that. I think one of the other things that you encounter during this is just the paralysis based on the groups that Dean just described. And so it's been really important for me not to get paralyzed at any point, or if there's paralysis, it's really momentarily, and then you just move on and just keep the project moving in lieu of the categories that Dean just described. Yeah.
Absolutely. And I've said this before in other contexts, and I absolutely see it with all of you. I mean, Salesforce is a very powerful tool. It can really help any organization who's willing to put forth the time and effort and energy towards really investing in that innovation that it enables really for you. But what's key to the success is having leaders like both of you who are there to make decisions when they need to get made, are there to put things, as Dean kind of alluded to, on the backlog, so to speak, for a future release, helping to drive it forward, removing the roadblocks. Is there anything, I think you guys have touched on it, but is there anything more along those lines? Because I think not just in the public sector, but certainly in the commercial space, the private sector as well, that challenge of how do I drive it, that you've got to have the driver, what are the other things that you feel as a change agent have to be there? I think you guys are excellent at decision making and removing roadblocks and really pushing forward in the face of challenge. Is there anything else that you would have as advice to someone who's looking at implementing Salesforce to help them lead through that?
You first, Dean.
But I think definitely get management support, right? Get your support of the executive management group. Make sure that you support. Understand that regardless of what anybody tells you, I've learned that nothing that you do is easy. Okay, none of your workflows that you have today are easy. Even if somebody tells you that, you're going to find out a lot of things that you currently do when you do your current workflow mapping, and you're going to wonder to yourself why you're doing it. But it's not going to be easy. So there is no easy button to press for these things. But again, I go back to you believe that you're going to make a difference. You have a list. Develop a list of the reasons why you're doing the project. I guess, improve on that list, refine that list, but, understand and just stick with it because you are going to make a difference. Just believe in that. And at the end of the day, the light of the tunnel. And by the way, going live on a system is not the end of the tunnel, okay? To go live, then you're going to get all these backlog and all these improvement projects that you're going to have to work on to make the system even better. But just believe that you're going to make a difference, and you will.
Paula?
I think I would just add to that, that, there's a bit of salesmanship in the work that we do. And fortunately, that was a part of my background. So you have to keep pitching the concept over and over and over to different customer groups, especially internally, including your administration, in our case, the commission, because a lot of this is very foreign to people. They don't understand, verbiage like platforms and telephony and cases. And so things that may come naturally or that we learn through this process is very foreign to others that we engage with. So I find myself having to repitch the total picture and then also small pieces of the picture over time. So initially, Dina, when you started working with us, I still till this day, my favorite slide is showing all the products. It's like a rainbow of all the different products that Salesforce has. And then I take, no matter who I'm talking to, I reintroduce them to the different product concepts from, high customer touch to no customer touch, that pendulum, just so people can get the concept of change. We're going through a change over time. And, even my chairman, I have to keep reminding, but now when I take him a case and I can print out everything and I say, this is the case of this customer, here's the dates that we talked to this customer, here's all the backup information, he just gets it now, But I think that's what a parting tip, if you will, is you have to keep selling the concept because it doesn't connect the first time.
That's awesome. That's great. And I think, I know we're going to start to transition to Q&A. And just to recap a little bit on the broader journeys that both of you guys have taken, Paula starting more from a customer service perspective and, looking at addressing that immediate need to get customers' phone calls answered and aggregate all of those inquiries into one place. And Salesforce has really provided that, it sounds like, for you. And I know you mentioned there's a future phase with some IT, maybe some legacy system work. On the other side, Dean, on the DCCA side, started more with payment than legacy system migrations. They're also now looking at customer service call centers. So it's like the pathways can be quite different, but you both were tackling very, very specific departmental challenges, I should say, that you guys were working to overcome and solve those problems. So I think that being said, can we talk 1 second before we transition to a Q&A, because I want to hear what you think about how the end user, we talked a lot about the big picture and the executives and the leadership that's required. How are your end users adapting, responding now that it's been a number of years? Any feedback on how do the users really, how do they embrace that system over time, or today versus, maybe when you first went live? Any comments on that from either one of you?
I think for me, go ahead, Dee.
I think I mentioned before, when the users start to use the system, they're going to see, the endless potentials and all the possibilities. So you end up doing a lot of enhancements, a lot of changes as part of your maintenance operations portion of the system. So, they'll get on board and then they'll start using it, and then they'll realize that, hey, they can do all these other things, and they want to do all this, make all these suggestions on how to make the system even better. So, I think that's the good thing. Go ahead, Paula, sorry.
Yeah, I think ours is about a 50-50. We have, 50% of our users who have been on for a little over a year. So they're totally all in. They see the benefits of it. especially if you're a case manager, you see the value of how it can help you. And I just want to insert that some of the staff are very fearful because they think that this is going to put light on maybe some of the inefficiencies on an individual basis. However, for those users that see how it can help them to tell a fuller story versus one side of the story, which is usually the customer's story, then they get engaged and they become better advocates, if you will. The other users that have just come on in the last 6 months, they're kind of like, you know, when you try and you think you're starting to swim, so you just dip your toe in the water and you're not quite ready yet, but then something has to, usually there's a trigger that motivates them, and then they're like, oh, okay, now I get it, the information is in Salesforce, and then they, you know, put the whole foot in and start there. But we have about a 50-50 experience.
Awesome. Great. All right. I know Michelle is going to start reading off some questions, so we'll transition over to Q&A.
Great. Thank you guys for sharing. I think those are great journeys that you guys have been on. I'll start with the Q&As. The first one is, depending on the size of an organization, Salesforce can be an expensive solution. Can you share some examples of ROI and how long it took your department at all levels to experience ROI?
I'm assuming they're talking about the licensing costs and stuff. So, like for us, and just in general, we have several applications that I call enterprise-wide across the entire department. And then we have other applications that are to specific business lines only. But you know, you only need one license, despite, you know, you could access 4 different applications, but you only need one license to get there. So there are some economies of scale depending on how your applications work out on that. So that'll cut down on your ROI time and provide some benefits to it. But you know, there are some benefits that are not quantifiable, right? There's some things that you just can't necessarily price out or put a value on, but they're also part of your return on investment. Some things we have to do because of statute, we're required to do it. You know, other things is, you know, we can't do it now. It's impossible for us to do it now. But, you know, maybe with your Salesforce application, you can do it with that. So those are considerations. You know, Salesforce is very, I was impressed with the ease and quickness of how you can develop something on Salesforce. And the scalability of it, you know, for improvements in the future. You know, for us anyway, here at DCCA, what is that future business interaction going to look like for us? You know, our children now, they're using iPads in kindergarten, right? I have a hard time using this thing, okay? But what is the business interaction going to be in the future? You know, we put credit cards and ACH payments and e-checks on. But I think in the future, it's going to be all this mobile stuff, right? Mobile banking, all these other mobile payment initiatives. So you need the ability to scale up and meet the future requirements for that.
Yeah, so cost for us, I measure it in different ways. One is through customer experience. So as I mentioned earlier, the frustration that our customers were dealing with is we're not, you know, perfect yet, but it's definitely improved that. From hard costs, it really came down to dollars per day. I mean, and so if, you know, we could solve 3 customer problems in a day, hallelujah, because sometimes the problems are years old that we're trying to resolve. So there's the hard costs, which I believe is fair for the work that we do. And then the soft costs, which really those dollars go a long way with our customer experience measurements.
Okay, thank you. Dean, anything to add there? No? Okay. What are the best strategies for training change leaders in a process of implementing a new CRM system?
These two
He's
have
a good-
natural talent, natural ability. So no training was required for these two. No, I'm just
A
kidding.
lot of prayer. No.
I'll address that. I mean, I've already identified champions that Dean mentioned early on who can kind of take the torch. You know, I'm into retirement age, and but I want to finish. This is like a really, really important project for me. So I had identified champions early on who could really just kind of take it and lead certain areas this from my staff, but also from the chairman's office that I think are well equipped to just give me peace of mind that I could leave and say, you know, okay, job well done, carry on. So I think that's really important to kind of scope out in your timeline, your legacy, your champions.
Well, I know, Dean, you've mentioned, actually both Paula and Dean, when we were talking about this ahead of time, you both mentioned whoever has to have some thick skin and some grit in there. So I don't know if you guys want to speak on that, but I can definitely say you guys are both tough in that respect.
Go ahead, Dean.
Yeah, just get your shots, you know, because you get bitten a lot. That's all I can say. But, no, I mean, you know, it is what it is. You know, I think your change champions, if you will, they'll come to the surface, and it'll be pretty apparent that these are the people that you can lean on for your project. But it is a like I said, it's a very important area. You have to do it from the very start and go through that.
I got it. And the follow-up question from Doug is, and we talked a little bit about the resistance that you saw. How much resistance did you guys encounter? He's been through similar experiences with government, and it can be difficult to get things done because the resistance is there. And then is there a particular change management approach you guys use? He named Cotter and Prosy as a couple. Resistance.
I think for us, I divvied up the different buckets of resistance, and I took on the ones that I thought were within my realm to kind of, you know, Hawaiians always use the word lomi. You just lomi them until, you know, you kind of get them to that point. And so I took on certain buckets, and then other buckets I just kind of asked our chairman's office to take, because as a state agency, we have union members, and I just thought that that was not my area to address, quite frankly.
Yeah, so I guess to answer Doug's question, you are going to experience a lot of resistance. I think the degree of resistance depends on how big the change is to the current processes, right? If you're gonna make things radically different, then you can expect a higher level of resistance on that. But you know, we're able to get some help. You know, ETS has some OCM people that were able to help us on some of our projects, and we value their you know, great input and helping us kind of step through some of those hurdles. But yeah, there is going to be resistance. You can expect that. That's just natural. Maybe more so in the public sector than the private, but it is going to happen, so you can expect that.
Okay, thank you. And then there's a series of questions about maybe resources. Do you have any educational plans to develop Salesforce admin or developer skills or certification within your staff?
I think our plan was I have somebody at the department level to administer the systems that are enterprise-wide across all the sections. But you know, our plan is to develop an administrator or have the sections that own their specific business line applications to, you know, to administer those areas as well. We do hire of course, consultants or whatever to help us with M&O right now. But hopefully our long range plan is we could take maybe some of that over later when we build up the expertise, both in-house and in the state with Salesforce. But yeah, the plan is for it to have somebody from that business area be the administrator for those systems.
Mhm.
I think for us, during this COVID time, what really came out is, the first shutdown is it was my job to kind of figure out how to keep these people busy, if you will. And one of the things I utilized, which I thought was great, is all the training on Salesforce. It's called is it Trailhead?
Trailhead, yep.
Yeah, Trailhead. So I basically had all of my team members set out their days so they would have to go into all of the different modules to really become very familiar with all of the other pieces that they had not been exposed to, just to kind of pique their interest. And they were just exhausted from the fact that there's just so much to learn, and which is great because some of the topics, floated up for some and others felt that other modules were more important to them. So that was just kind of an introduction from an educational point, from the users that I had within my team. Yeah.
Mhm. Okay, and then a quick question. Is your agency mostly using classic UI or Lightning environment?
We're
We're all
using
Lightning Plus.
Everybody's lightning,
Everyone's Lightning now. Okay, great.
or they are.
Okay, and then why don't we go for this one? For Dean, having implemented multiple projects on Salesforce, what have you seen from one project to the next? How have they varied in speed and complexity?
That's a good question because we've had different projects. So we've had some what I call smaller projects that we've done. We've had a mid-sized project, and we have big projects or more complex projects. I think development-wise, the workflows are more complex, so then the improvements and the development is a little bit more complex, so it takes a little while longer.
Mhm.
But there's consistency across the projects, right? You're able to instill some consistency in the fact that you want a certain level of service. You can make that standard across all sizes of projects. So there are some things that we can do. The other thing that you need to do is the more applications you have, you need to set up a data governance kind of plan for your department because everything resides in one org, and you don't want to duplicate field or object names like account or something like that, right? Account name. So those are things that you have to kind of develop when you have multiple orgs working and applications running.
Okay, and then maybe I'll close with this last question. 2020 hindsight, is there something that you learned along the journey that you wish you knew at the beginning? If you could give advice to yourself 2 years ago.
How did I end up here?
Yeah, mine was, how come I couldn't find somebody else to do this? But part of what the True does, and I've been bugging Michelle for a long time now, but these events as well. One advice I can give you guys is find out what other people have done, right? Or other people are working on, because you don't have to start from square one, right? There's no reason for you to have to do that. And yeah, it might not fit you 100%. You might have to do some tweaks and customization here and there. But in general, I mean, just find out what other people have done and ask them, and choose providing a forum for that. But I think that's important because sometimes, especially in the public sector, we don't always talk to each other as much as we should, right? To find out like, hey, Paula developed her call center thing, or I have a payment collection application, I'm going to put an e-travel application up shortly. So, I mean, those are things that we can share. And I tell people I don't have any problem sharing what we've done. If it can help, others to, not have to go through what we did, Can't help you to the change management part so much because, you know, they're not our people, but you know, just those kinds of things.
Yeah, I would agree. I think the fact that we met Dean and his team is awesome because that just kind of expanded. You know, you feel like you're in an island by yourself. And, you know, for us, we really are because we're out in Kapolei. There's not a lot of state agencies out here. So you almost have to force yourself out there. So meeting Dean and his team was really, you know, got my team energized and excited. And then opportunities like this, just I echo what Dean is saying is, you know, just being able to put ourselves out there and just share, like there's others like us who are doing this crazy like us. But, you know, no regrets. I mean, I think everything we've done has been, in spite of the change management issues, been on point, on time, keep pushing. And, you know, it goes back to something I believe Dean said earlier, you just got to believe in it. You know, it's like an athlete. You just have to believe in the mission and that you're going to hit your A game and not give up. You know, you just got to keep going and tough skin, you know, just keep smiling or just be, okay, you know, thank you for your comments. Got to move on, you know.
No, I appreciate that. Dina, any advice for people that want to get started on this journey?
To me?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I didn't know if you said Dean.
Sorry, Dina.
Our names are so similar.
They
It's like, go ahead. Okay. No, I mean, I think hearing these two, hopefully it's inspiring people to recognize, I think the key takeaway is there really isn't a right or wrong, right? There isn't a right or wrong way to approach it. They did totally different things, and you can see that they've now been on this journey of continuous improvement. And I think starting and like exactly what Paula just said, like, okay, keep going, just keep moving ahead. I mean, that is the number one thing. So no matter which way you end up going, there's no right or wrong, but just keep moving ahead and innovation. So these two are big prime examples of that. So
Great, thank you. With that, I'd like to thank you on behalf of the audience and True. Thank you guys for sharing everything you did today. It was really helpful.
thank you.
Thank
Thank
you guys.
Aloha.
Aloha. And then with that, let me just share our screen and we will close up.
Thanks, Michelle.
No, thank you guys. So in our chat, I think you should be seeing their email addresses. All our speakers have generously agreed to take any additional questions that you may have, or if you want to connect to learn more, please do. I wanted
Send
to
all your
take
questions, Dean.
Yeah, how come my email address is up there? It's supposed to be Paula's twice.
You'll all get emails. I wanted to take a moment. Oh, yeah, thanks. I wanted to take a moment to thank our true sponsors for making these and other events possible. Many of these organizations, like Dina, are leading use cases to share innovative solutions with organizations in Hawaii so we can all rise to tide. And then to close out, please fill out a survey that should also be in the chat box. I appreciate your sharing whether or not this information is useful to you in your decision-making process, or what else we can include to support your digital transformation. I wanted to make sure that True's efforts are helping organizations in Hawaii to learn about and adopt solutions. With that, I'd like to highlight upcoming True events. As part of the Women in Tech series that's co-sponsored by HEDC and the Sandbox, we'll be interviewing Julie Yamamoto, General Operations Manager of Huey Car Share, in an event on October the 21st. I'm excited to learn how she took the idea and built it to what it is today. I'd like to reinforce that True focuses on providing and sharing solutions. True's vendor agnostic and tool agnostic and solutions focused. Keep a lookout for future events on AWS, RPA, and cloud solutions. And we also have one on digital marketing strategies if you want to learn about the changing consumer behaviors in Japan. You can always visit us at hec.org/true for solutions recaps and for upcoming events. I look forward to more collaborations as we face multiple challenges, from diversifying Hawaii's economy to accelerating the adoption of technology and innovation. to make our organizations more productive and competitive. I want to thank you again for joining us today on True Innovation webinar and for your continued support. Take care and stay safe. Thank you, everybody.
Thanks, Michelle.
Aloha.
Thank you,
Thanks,
Paula.
Michelle.
Thank you, Dean.
Thanks, Dean.
Thank
Hey,
you. Aloha.
bye. Take care, everybody.